enjoyment of making music. We have, first, I wish to thank the pastor, staff, and the congregation for allowing us to use this beautiful room, which has marvelous acoustic properties. Also, the equipment that is provided, for example, we have a modern synthesized instrument played by Barbara Thompson, which can sound like a harpsichord, or it can sound like a 32-foot pipe organ in the biggest cathedral. Our ensemble consists of strings, which you know about, the keyboard instrument, and a set of instruments in the Fipple family. Those of you who do crossword, make a note. Fipple, F-I-P-P-L-E, means all the family of flutes. We have horizontal and vertical. So the conglomeration here, we tried to be as authentic as possible, and we focus mainly on music of the Baroque period, which essentially ends in 1750 with the death of Johann Sebastian Bach. So today we're going to expand our repertoire a little bit, and we go along, we'll find out what we're playing and why, and what significance it may have other than the music alone. So we are going to start with the work of Henry Purcell, an Englishman who spent his entire writing career in the city of Westminster, and he wrote an overture to a particular kind of work which is called an opera shtick in some language, I don't know exactly what, in which the principal characters do not sing, they speak. But the music is left for the gods and the chorus. So anyway, one of these works is called King Arthur, and you have to take the song back to the period, kings, princes, bishops, and all that sort of stuff. And it is a very regal sounding number, as you'll find out. Overture to King Arthur by Henry Purcell. of music that we play, and in a host of composers who wrote in that particular style, in the Baroque and early classical period. One of them was Telemann. And both he and Purcell were English, and they spoke English. I think they spoke English. And very prolific composer. The form of which he was most widely known were his concertos for solo instruments and ensemble. So what we have selected tonight is for 2 flutes, strings, and keyboard, concerto in B-flat by Telemann. The year 1776, an important year in our history. Two composers living in the same year, separated by thousands of miles and a million miles in cultural difference. What do we know about it? Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. He was 20 years old in 1776, and he was in the last few days in Salzburg before he went on tour. Among the many kinds of compositions that he wrote, a host of them were known as church concertos. And he wrote them to fill in gaps in the church services as they may occur. I can just see stopping a service for latecomers to be seated, I don't know. But nevertheless, he wrote this big collection, and many of them were in April of 1776. So we're going to play one for you by way of changing modality and the sound. When you hear it, it is so obviously Mozart, I didn't have to tell you who wrote it. Church Sonata of Mozart. expression is glatt Mozart. It is absolutely 20 years old. 20 years old. If you do the math, you'll see that he did not live very much longer after. Imagine what the output might have been had he lived even to the average age of that period. So, (1776), a pivotal date in our history. The question I always had, what was going on in the colonies? That's us. In the colonies at exactly the same time. Were there any American composers? And the answer is yes, they're hard to find. One of them was among the signers of the Declaration of Independence. Now I'm sure that you can think of the name of somebody who put his John Hancock on that document. Two members who signed were advanced, accomplished harpsichordists. One was William Whipple of New Hampshire, and the other was Francis Hopkinson from New Jersey. A very interesting guy, because he was also a poet and a composer. And the style in which he wrote, I assume, must have been the style of music acceptable to the colonists. Note on your programs that Hopkinson and Mozart died in the same year, 1791. And you're all, I'm assuming everybody here is a high school graduate, and you know the significance of 1791. Two amazing things happened. One, in the United States, the Bill of Rights was adopted by the Continental Congress, and the first Constitution of France was promulgated. So far apart, and yet so close in so many ways. So we are going to perform for you a song and poem. Hopkinson wrote the text as well. It's on the reverse side of your program. And by the way, the images that you have on your programs show the 18th century solution to male pattern baldness. Probably don't think of it today. Nevertheless, we're going to have a guest artist, and that is Cantor Bill Wood, who will sing it for you. character in the same year, April of 1776. Incredible. So, there were two King Georges who you can relate to. King George II and his successor, King George III. Neither of those two Georges did the colonists any favor. Had King George III listened to Burke's conciliation with the colonies speech, we might all still have a monarch over us. However, that did not happen. And although the Continental Congress thought about moving George Washington to become king, he said no, no kings. And so we have what we have today. So, King George II commissioned George Frederick Handel to write a piece to commemorate the end of the War of the Austrian Succession. I'm sure you're all familiar with that, you don't need details. So to celebrate the end of this war, King George II commissioned Handel to write a piece which would be played in a grand fireworks ceremony on the Thames River. And the piece in its entirety is called Music for the Royal Fireworks. The musicians were to be on barges moored on the shore, and he engaged a squad of Italian architects and stonemasons to build a triumphal arch, both of stone and of wood, from which the fireworks would be fired off. The fact that it caught fire during the presentation should not have diminished the quality or character of the event. In addition, it is the first recorded traffic jam in English history, because so many people were coming in their horse-drawn carriages that there was a 3-hour delay getting across the one bridge from one side of the Thames to the other. The only other event which is similar to that occurred in 1883 with the opening of the Brooklyn Bridge, which was accompanied by huge fireworks in the East River, not unlike nowadays for a different reason. But so many people showed up, they crowded onto the bridge where they were not supposed to be, and while the fireworks were going off, there was a panic. The panic of 1883, not a financial panic, but this crowd on the bridge struggled to get off, there were injuries, and so that kind of ceremony was not considered for future openings. Nevertheless, the portion of Handel's music which we are going to play is La Réjouissance, the rejoicing at the conclusion of the War of the Austrian Succession in 1748. I won't tell you why it was or why it was fought or who, we'll have to look that up. So this is La Réjouissance from the fireworks music of George Frederick Handel, also an Englishman.